Welcome to another installment of Friday Q&A. I hope you're all awesome. As always, if you've got a question you would like me to answer next week, put it in the comment section below. If you want to support the channel, links to my music and my Patreon in the video description. If you want to chat about a bunch of stuff, jump on the Discord server that is also linked in the video description. And I'm going to answer some of last week's questions. The first one comes from Remshi. I hope I said that right. I probably totally butchered it. My apologies in advance. I'm somebody who's had my entire name butchered all the time, so I'm kind of used to it, but maybe I'm just desensitized to that. But anyway, they sent me an Instagram DM asking, have I ever tracked a song using amp sims, and did it get me the tone that I expected in my mind? The second part of this question, which I'll get to in a second, but go and listen to the latest Ragdoll single, Follow the Leader. That is all Axe FX 3 for the guitars on there. And could you record a pro rock album using only amp sims? I'm not going to go and say that, you know, I'm a pro rock guitar player, but there's one example. There's a lot of other examples out there of bands exclusively using stuff like the Axe FX and the Kemper on their recordings. I think a really good example is Devin Townsend's last album, where he went and reamped all the guitars with the Axe FX 3. And Devin's pretty awesome. I asked you all last week about, you know, what got you into guitar, and there were so many great responses. I'll try to catch some of these, but Mike Zimmerman and Mark Edgerly both mentioned that they had a Marlboro amp that was like a treble booster that you could plug in. And I've never tried one of those, but I was aware of those things before, which I think is, I mean, how 70s can you get, right? It's a cigarette brand and it's an amplifier, and it's also a treble booster as well. So yeah, I should probably keep my eyes and ears out for one of those. It's not a packet of cigarettes, which is a good thing because I don't smoke, but it would be really interesting to see what kind of treble booster circuit's in there. Imagine that, that's the new frontier. The greatest treble booster ever is the Marlboro amp. Who knows? But I thought that was interesting that two of the comments there mentioned that, and mentioned Black Sabbath as well. So clearly a lot of love for Sabbath, Zeppelin. A bunch of people mentioned seeing stuff like Elvis, which I can't even begin to imagine what a revolution that was like. If you were around, say, in the late 60s and you heard Hendrix, or you heard Sabbath for the first time, or if you're a little bit older and you remember Elvis coming out, how that would have just changed not only music, but just kind of culture in general. It's amazing stuff to think about. Really, really is. So yeah, this is the next question. Why won't Fractal do a new version of the FX8? I'm imagining something like the HX effects, but with Fractal effects in it. That would be amazing if you could get, I don't know, 6 to 8 foot switches or something like that on it, and it had a bunch of switching relays and MIDI and, I'm getting excited just thinking about that. I think a lot of people would love that because how often do you see on forums, it's like, I like the Helix form factor, but the sounds from the Axe FX are way up my alley. So I really hope they do something like that. I would love to see them do a single rack effects only unit as well, something akin to an Eventide Eclipse, but just go bonkers and go all in on the effects algorithms, whether it's stuff like the multi-tap delays or the plex delays, get some granular effects in there, get some weird glitchy stuff. I would love to see that as well, because feels like rack gear is having this mini renaissance at the moment. I'm certainly getting into it, and you know, I'm sure Fractal could deliver a killer 1-unit rack effects unit as well. Excellent idea. Go and suggest that on their forum. They should definitely do that. Alrighty. This is from Nate Clave. What's my opinion on diming an amp? Which one will get you your ideal tone the most? Miking a cab versus using a load box. I've had pretty good results with both. One thing I think to consider is the sort of sound you're actually going for. And if you're trying to do, you know, early Van Halen, or you're trying to do mid-70s Judas Priest or 80s Diamond Head or something like that, that is the sound of loud, right? It is a non-master volume amp turned up all the way in a room mics, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of hard to replicate with something that's just not loud. But at the same time, if you were recording, you know, a kind of modern prog metal album, you probably don't want a bunch of power amp distortion. You probably want a bunch of really tight, controlled, filtered preamp distortion. So in that case, you could almost make the argument that a load box is just going to be better because it's easier. And there is something in that workflow of plug in, get a sound, focus on the music and focus on the performance. But there is absolutely no right or wrong with these things. Use what sounds good. Kind of ties back into that first question about using amp sims. You know, whether I was using an amp or now I'm using the Axe effects, it's just like find something that sounds good. By the way, this is the HBE patch that I dialed in the other day on 5-minute tones with my single cut. I like it. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I should mention as well, if you're in Perth on Sunday, we're playing at Indie Bar starting at about 7 o'clock. So if you want to see some live music in Perth, pop on down. You can hear this guitar really loud through the PA there. So that should be a bunch of fun. This one is, there's a suggestion from Nubosaurus Rex. I don't know if this is just an Aussie thing, but eucalyptus oil is indeed amazing for getting adhesive off guitars. That was a follow-on from a question last week about how do you get the Fishman triple play mount off your guitar without damaging it. And cool to see Wishbone Ash. Oh my God, what a great band. And Uriah Heep mentioned as well. I think for a lot of people, our generation, our dads turned us on to all the awesome music that they grew up with. So there's definitely that kind of generational thing. And you see it, I see it with a lot of my students. I mean, I had a lesson earlier today where one of my students came in and they wanted to learn Van Halen and Rat songs. And I thought that was really cool. Kind of reminded me of myself 20 years ago was like, when I was like, I want to learn Rat, I want to learn Blue Murder, teach me all these kind of things. And people would look at me sideways and be like, what are you talking about? I've never heard that. Whereas now, it's way more accepted. I'm on board with this. Good music is good music. Richard Poole said that Sambora was the reason he started playing. Again, Richie, very, very underrated. I'm one of those people who, you know, I kind of didn't get it for a long time until I had to go and learn the songs. And then you're like, this is just good. This is giving people what they want. It's really good stuff. Awesome. And yeah, thank you, Ty. I'm glad I nailed your last name. I probably am going to butcher a bunch of last names in this one. This is a great question from Tansha Omala. Thoughts on any of the new Swedish glam metal bands, Crazy Licks, Heat, Eclipse, make you feel like the 80s all over again? So we were meant to play with Crazy Licks about a year ago at Melodic Rock Fest in Melbourne. We ended up, what's the name of the band? I'm drawing a blank. The other one, Reckless Love. They came out and they had a really fun stage show. We just kind of sat outside a stage and watched those guys play. That really felt 80s and people were really getting into it. But we were all really stoked to check out Crazy Licks as well. And I've sent a few messages back and forth with the guitar player because I think he uses an FM3 now. So shout out to the guys from Crazy Licks. They're a lot of fun. Eclipse are amazing, and so are Heat. I've been into Heat since their first album. But I gotta say, as good as that stuff is, the ultimate rock and roll music coming out of Scandinavia at the moment, and he's been doing it since the 90s, is Jorn Lande. So there's my listening tip of the week. Go and get Jorn's The Juke album if you like your Whitesnake and your Dio and all the kind of stuff I like. And he was a big inspiration on the early Ragdoll stuff as well. It's like, I want it to sound, you know, kind of late 80s, early 90s, but chunky like Jorn does. So Jorn's amazing, and so are the other bands I just mentioned there. So very good suggestion right there. We are cruising along. A bunch of people said Steve Vai, David Lee Roth. There's the EVH connection in there, obviously. I know starting out for me as well, Steve Vai, once I got to Steve Vai, it's like, oh, now you have found the person who is actually the best at guitar. And if you saw Steve's knapsack video, he's kept that up. It's pretty amazing how he's just stayed kind of relevant to the sound of electric guitar for like 4 decades almost. It's pretty amazing. So, alrighty, this one's a comment that somebody asked about the EMGs. If you want a single coil in EMG, there is an EMG 81TW, stands for triple wound. Oh, that's kind of cool. So you can have your normal EMG. They actually just put an extra pickup in there. I like it. I like it a lot. So, where are we at? This one's from Brother Doom. I don't know if this is a question or a comment. This is more just a compilation of the comments today, isn't it? He goes on to talk about listening to Sabbath for the first time. This is kind of cool. I remember the first time I listened to Black Sabbath, and this experience kind of checks out with me. He said, it blew him away. I'd heard a lot of heavy music from the 90s to mid 2000s, but it was nothing like that. I proclaimed that I didn't know this, but I wanted to do it for the rest of my life. So to this day, doom sludge is my preferred style of metal music to play. Yeah. I think I said last week as well, if you haven't checked out Orchid as well, I think they do that proto-Sabbath thing really, really well. And there's so many great bands in that entire kind of doom sludge stoner genre. It's fundamentally guitar music, which I am really on board with, and, you know, great tones. They really embrace the nasty sound of guitar tones as well, which I really like. When you go and listen to, I mean, you'll listen to something as listened to as the solo in Paranoid, and that ring modulator on the solo is a nasty, nasty guitar tone. It's so cool. Alrighty, so where are we at in the questions? I'm going to play some guitar while I scroll for you all. Stankface is happening. All right, this one comes from Tim. He says that I remind him of John Sykes. I'm just missing the awesome hair and the amazing singing voice and the guitar chops as well. And Alex Lifeson, hey, that's a huge compliment. Thank you very much. They're easily two of probably my 5 favorite players of all time. And yeah, when you realize that, it's pretty transparent what I do on the guitar and what I do when when I write music as well. But this is his question. Have I ever used a double neck live? No, that is something I want to do at some point for sure. That would be something that I'd probably have to write an entire song around to do. That would be a lot of fun. Does my dad still gig? He doesn't. I think he kind of stopped when I was quite young, but I do have a really vague memory of being at some country hotel where his band were playing, and I always remember it because they were setting up, and how much does this sound like everybody's token lead singer, right? The lead singer was walking around on stage with no shoes on, and he like cut his foot right open on some sharp part of the drum kit. And I remember just seeing a whole bunch of blood and full stacks, and it's this really vivid memory that I have, and I don't really remember much else. Oh, I remember that, you know, I was like maybe 5 or 6, and I remember falling out of bed in my sleep at this crummy old hotel. So yeah, but he's jumped up and played a couple of songs at various ragdoll gigs before, which is kind of a thrill to watch, you know, the guys I love playing with the person who's responsible for me playing with them. It was a really nice thing. So yeah, awesome stuff. Okay, where are we at here? This is the ultimate thing when you hear Barracuda by Heart for the first time. I agree. I remember hearing that for the first time. This is an observation from Ben Peasley, and just thinking, like, what is this Led Zeppelin song that I've never heard before? So that was my impression there. All right, this is good stuff. Another couple of bands. Again, this isn't a Q&A, is it? This is just me compiling all the awesome music suggestions you all put out there. So I'll still call it a Q&A in the title because, you know, it's what people want to hear. But this is a comment from Mudder1310, almost like the TC1210 rack nerds. A criminally overlooked band, Boris. Yes, I was checking out some of their stuff and listening to a bunch of slow dive. So look out for, there's that Yamaha soft focus preset on one of their effect units. I've been trying to recreate that thing for a slow dive thing. So check that out. Hopefully at some point in the next week, if you're watching this Q&A on Friday, if it's, I don't know, 10 years after I've done this, you'll be able to go through and find a video, I hope. So there's a question from Travis Russell, DC. Do I have any experience with rosewood necks? Yes, I had a guitar with a rosewood neck. Actually, the Ingve Strat that is in a gig bag over there was originally a Warmoth Strat with a rosewood neck, and I swapped the electronics and the neck off. So I just need to get a body and kind of rebuild this rosewood neck Strat. But I agree with you about the kind of feel. It has this natural oiliness, and then a friend of mine has a PRS McCarty with a solid rosewood neck, and it might be the greatest neck I've ever felt on a guitar. I've tried to buy it off them a couple of times, and it's been a no-go, but one day I will get that rosewood neck PRS. Next question is from Jeremy Lamb. FM3 sounds amazing with headphones, but you want to find some alternative monitors. Shout out to my buddy Shane, because I was actually video calling it with him the other night, and he's got a set of Dynaudios or Dynacords. Hopefully he's watching this and he can clarify in the comments, but either of those, or I'm using Adam A7X studio monitors at home, and I think they're amazing. They can really crank up loud, but they're just great to listen to music on. I say it like every second Q&A, like, yeah, get some really good studio monitors and treat yourself. So, all right. Simba Kim mentioned that you went from playing CS and playing guitar with your buddy. I had a really similar experience with a friend of mine, although we used to skateboard and then play some video games like Half-Life. That was kind of the one happening at the time. And then we'd try and work out, you know, Linkin Park and Blink-182 and Thin Lizzy riffs on guitar. So that was pretty fun. Pretty fun right there. It's just so cool to read all these comments where it reminds me of that excitement I had, and hopefully in all of you retelling this, it reminds you all of why you started playing. I try to tell myself that if I ever kind of get down about music or my own playing or the state of the world or whatever, it's like, hey, it's a pretty nice thing to be able to pick up one of these and be transported in time, or just have time stand still, to quote a Rush lyric, and you know, be in the moment. So yeah, guitar's pretty awesome. Mark Knopfler has popped up a lot in this as well, which is not a surprise because Mark's amazing. So here is, we're almost at the end of the questions, which is pretty crazy. This one is from C Shades. FM3 or Quad Cortex? Well, this is the thing. You could easily go FM3 or Quad Cortex or Helix or Kemper or Mua G300 or HX Stomp or Axefx Ultra, Axefx 2. I think now the nice thing is it's more a case of what do you want to get out of the unit? What is going to make you happy in terms of functionality and tones and portability? So come back at me with those and you might actually find out that you've answered your own question, but it's pretty obvious what I'm going to suggest. So get an FM3, the end. I'm here to shill all your FM3 users. It's what I use live, so it works for me. Whether it's going to work for you, whether it's going to work for somebody else is kind of beyond the pale. So what straps am I using on my PRS? So my main one, oh my God, this thing is grungy looking now. This looks like a teenager's bed sheets now. It's one of those Damasio kind of silky fabric straps, but it is so sweated in and yellow and disgusting. I should probably get another one at some point, but yeah, they kind of work. And I just screwed the strap pin. I took it off, put the strap down, and then I screwed the pin on top of it, and that seemed to work pretty well rather than trying to fit it in the, I don't even know if that's how they work. Maybe it comes with the pin inserted. I can't remember. I bought this guitar and immediately put this strap on like 7 or 8 years ago. So yeah, last question. Before the last question, let's hear something on this guitar. Let's hear the neck pickup with a tone all the way down. Thank you all so much for putting up with the faces and the playing, and you're all awesome. But this one is from Matt Nagy. Cable management in your studio, thoughts? It's definitely cable mismanagement in my studio, but one thing that I found is amazing with some of the not older rack gear that I've got, but stuff like the Eventide Eclipse and the Lexicon PCM81. The fact that they've got digital in and out is just the most amazing thing. Same with the Axe effects. So my standard signal chain is guitar, Axe effects, SPDIF out. I'm using an SPDIF to optical converter so I can use the digital input on my Apollo Twin, and it means I run one, well, I guess it's 2 cables, but I have the converter right next to the Apollo. So it's really 1 cable from the Axe effects to my interface. It's 1 less set of analog to digital conversions, and it means I can run stereo with 1 cable. So I have just ordered a rack mount mixer, the Samson SM10, and that's going to go in my big studio rack here, and hopefully I can actually kind of finish my kind of Bradshaw rig inspired by Bradshaw rack and have that all set up with all the effects processors I've got all patched in, ready to go, coming back to the Axe effects so that anytime I want to use effects or combinations of effects, I can do that. And then I'm almost finished with my kind of studio pedal board, which is somewhere over there. You probably can't see it because there you go. It's stuck in the corner right there, and that's got a bunch of my Eventide stuff, the Strymon Dig on it, and a few other kind of funky pedals. So I'll be able to put that on the floor, probably have a patch panel on the rack so I can integrate it with the mixer and all that kind of thing. And I have a patch panel on my desk with my Axe effects, so all its ins and outs are exposed. And that's as far as I get into cable management. The rest of it is all kind of tucked behind my desk. And I've got a Furman power conditioner. So yeah, it's not pro level studio stuff. It's very much home studio stuff. And I have a bunch of these kind of cables where it's it's 2 guitar cables taped together, and that's my method of cable management, so I can run, you know, stereo returns from my rack at the moment. So I will be doing some cleaning up on that, and I will do a kind of like build with the entire rack once I've got all the bits and pieces. So look out for that one. Look out for yourselves. Stay safe, be excellent. If you've got any questions for next week, let me know in the comments. Again, Ragdoll at Indie Bar on Sunday if you're in Perth. Otherwise, have an awesome weekend. I love you all. Take it easy.